The dust cloud billowing from the wagon wheels carried the scent of desperation as it rolled into Willits, California, in the summer of 1876. Delilah Thompson clutched the rough edge of the wooden flatbed, her knuckles white with tension as she stared at the bustling mining town that would soon become the site of her greatest humiliation, or perhaps her salvation. At 22, Delilah had never imagined she would end up as property to be auctioned to the highest bidder. Life had dealt her a cruel hand after her parents died of typhoid 6 months ago, leaving nothing but debts and the ruthless creditor, Mr. Silas Blackwell, who had claimed her as payment. Her honey blonde hair hung in limp strands around her face, once bright blue eyes now dulled by weeks of captivity and travel across the harsh California terrain. "Get up, girl," Blackwell barked, yanking her arm as the wagon stopped in front of the Willits saloon. "Your debt will be settled today, one way or another." Delilah stumbled as her feet touched the dusty ground, her worn dress once her Sunday best hanging loosely on her frame after weeks of meager rations. The mid-afternoon sun beat down mercilessly as Blackwell dragged her toward the wooden platform hastily constructed in the town square. "Quite a prize you've brought, Blackwell," called a portly man with a greasy beard, eyeing Delilah like a piece of meat. "Should fetch a handsome price." "Better than the debt she owes, that's for sure," Blackwell replied with a laugh that sent shivers down Delilah's spine. As she was pushed toward the platform, Delilah caught glimpses of the crowd beginning to gather. Miners, ranchers, and townspeople, mostly men, formed a semicircle, their expressions ranging from curiosity to open lust. She fought back tears, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. On the outskirts of the crowd stood a tall figure who seemed different from the rest. Cole Thornton leaned against a hitching post, his stance casual but his eyes sharp beneath the brim of his worn Stetson. At 30 years old, the rancher had seen his share of the West's brutality, but something about this spectacle made his jaw clench tight in disgust. "Quite a show," muttered Samuel Jenkins, the town's blacksmith, as he sidled up beside Cole. "Blackwell's been bragging about this all week, says she's the daughter of a gentleman who couldn't pay his debts." Cole's eyes narrowed as he watched Delilah being roughly positioned on the platform. "Debt or no debt, selling a person isn't right." "Ain't legal neither," Jenkins agreed. "But who's going to stop it? Sheriff's off chasing those Mendoza brothers." Blackwell climbed onto the platform beside Delilah, raising his hands to quiet the growing crowd. "Gentlemen of Willits, today I offer you a rare opportunity. This fine specimen of womanhood comes with skills aplenty: cooking, cleaning, sewing, and—" he paused for effect, his grin widening— "other womanly arts that would make any man's home more comfortable." Catcalls and whistles erupted from several men in the crowd. Delilah closed her eyes briefly, fighting the wave of nausea threatening to overwhelm her. "Bidding starts at $100, Blackwell announced. "Who'll give me 150? Shouted a voice from the crowd. Now, Blackwell chided. "I said 100. This is quality merchandise." 75, called another. 100. A miner near the front raised his hand, his gaze traveling Delilah's form with undisguised interest. Cole felt something stir within him, a mixture of rage and determination that he hadn't felt since the war. He straightened up from the hitching post, his hand resting instinctively on the worn grip of his Colt. The bidding continued, rising steadily as more men joined in. 150. 200. 250. $300, called a well-dressed man whom Delilah recognized as the owner of the largest brothel in town. Her heart sank further. 300 going once. Blackwell began, clearly pleased with the price. $500. Cole's voice rang out clear and firm, cutting through the chatter. The crowd fell silent, turning to stare at the tall rancher. Cole stepped forward, his boots kicking up small clouds of dust as he approached the platform. "Well, well," Blackwell recovered quickly. "It seems Mr. Thornton recognizes value when he sees it. $500, gentlemen. Can anyone top that?" The brothel owner scowled but shook his head. The miners muttered amongst themselves $500 was more than most of them made in 6 months. 500 going once, going twice. Blackwell paused, scanning the crowd hopefully, but no one spoke up. "Sold to Cole Thornton for $500. Delilah's eyes met Cole's for the first time, confusion and fear evident in her gaze. Was this stoic cowboy any better than the others? His expression gave away nothing as he approached, counting out bills from a worn leather wallet. "She's all yours, Thornton," Blackwell said, pocketing the money with obvious satisfaction. "Though I never took you for the type to need to buy company." Cole ignored the jab, stepping onto the platform and addressing Delilah directly. "Miss, gather whatever belongings you have. You're coming with me." His voice was gentler than she expected, but still Delilah hesitated. I don't have anything," she admitted softly. "Just what I'm wearing." Something flashed in Cole's eyes, anger but not directed at her. He shrugged off his jacket and placed it around her shoulders, the unexpected kindness nearly breaking her composure. "Then we'll be going," he said, offering his arm. Bewildered, Delilah placed her hand tentatively on his forearm, allowing him to guide her down from the platform. The crowd parted as they walked toward his horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion waiting patiently at the hitching post. "Hold on a minute, Thornton," called the brothel owner, stepping into their path. "I might be willing to go $600 for the girl." Cole's expression hardened. "Sales complete, Harrison. Back off." "Come now, surely we can," I said. "Back off." Cole's hand moved slightly toward his gun, and the threat, though unstated, was clear. Harrison raised his hands in mock surrender. "No need for trouble, just making a business offer." With a final glare, Cole led Delilah past the man to his horse. The crowd began to disperse, the entertainment over for the day. Cole helped Delilah mount the stallion before swinging up behind her, one arm protectively around her waist as he guided the horse away from the town square. Delilah remained rigid in his embrace, uncertain and afraid despite his seemingly noble intervention. They rode in silence until the buildings of Willits grew smaller behind them. Then Cole guided the horse off the main trail toward a copse of oak trees beside a small creek. "We'll rest here a moment," he said, dismounting and helping her down. Delilah backed away immediately, clutching his jacket around her. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole crouched by the creek, filling his canteen. "Nothing," he said simply, offering her the water. "You're free to go wherever you wish." Delilah stared at him in disbelief. "What? I said you're free. That display back there wasn't right. No person should be sold like cattle." He straightened up, his expression serious. "I have a small ranch about 2 hours' ride from here. You're welcome to stay there until you decide what you want to do, but I won't force you." You spent $500 just to set me free." Delilah's voice cracked with emotion. Cole shrugged, suddenly looking uncomfortable with her scrutiny. It was the right thing to do. Tears welled in Delilah's eyes, the first she had allowed herself in weeks. "I don't understand." "There's nothing to understand. I couldn't stand by and watch it happen." He hesitated, then added, "My mother was captured by raiders when I was a boy. Sold to a man in Mexico. Never saw her again." The simple statement, delivered without emotion, told Delilah more about this quiet cowboy than 1,000 words could have. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." Cole turned back to his horse, adjusting the saddle. "The choice is yours, Miss Thompson. I can take you to the next town over or to my ranch, or if you have family somewhere, I'll see you get there safely." "I don't have anyone," Delilah admitted. "My parents died of typhoid last winter. Mr. Blackwell was my father's business partner. He claimed my father owed him money, and when I couldn't pay—" She trailed off, the memory still raw. Cole nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Then I suggest you come to the ranch, at least for now. My housekeeper, Mrs. Winters, can help get you settled. She's been complaining about needing another woman around the place." Delilah considered her options, which were painfully few. This stranger had shown her more kindness in an hour than she'd known in months. "I'll repay you," she said firmly. "Every penny of the $500. I can cook, clean, so that won't be necessary," Cole interrupted. "I didn't buy you, I just intervened." "Nevertheless, I pay my debts, Mr. Thornton." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Cole, just Cole." "Cole," she repeated, the name feeling strange on her tongue. "I'm Delilah, Delilah Thompson." "Well, Delilah Thompson, shall we continue to the ranch? It'll be dark soon, and these trails can be tricky at night." For the first time in months, Delilah felt a flicker of hope. "Yes," she said. "Let's go." The journey to Cole's ranch took them through rolling hills covered in summer-dried grass and scattered oak trees. As they rode, Cole pointed out landmarks and told her about the area, his deep voice a soothing counterpoint to the steady rhythm of the horses' hooves. "That's Sugar Creek," he said, nodding toward a winding stream. "Never runs dry, even in the worst droughts. Good fishing there, too." "It's beautiful country," Delilah observed, gradually relaxing in his presence. "Has its challenges, but yes, it is. Ah, we're coming up on the ranch now." As they crested a hill, Delilah caught her first glimpse of Cole's home, a sprawling ranch nestled in a verdant valley. A modest but well-built two-story house stood at its center, surrounded by a barn, corrals, and several outbuildings. Cattle dotted the pastures, and smoke curled invitingly from the house's chimney. "You live here alone?" she asked, surprised by the size of the operation. "No, there's Mrs. Winters. She's been with me since I started the place. And 3 ranch hands, Diego, Tom, and Hank. They've got cabins down by the south pasture." As they approached, a plump, gray-haired woman emerged from the house, shading her eyes against the setting sun. When she spotted Cole with Delilah, her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Cole Thornton, what have you done now?" she called as they rode into the yard. Cole dismounted and helped Delilah down before answering. "Mrs. Winters, this is Miss Delilah Thompson. She'll be staying with us for a while." The older woman looked Delilah up and down, taking in her worn dress and exhausted appearance. To her credit, she asked no questions, simply nodding briskly. "Well then, you must be hungry and tired, child. Come inside and we'll get you sorted." Delilah followed Mrs. Winters into the house, overwhelmed by the sudden kindness after so many weeks of cruelty. The house was simply furnished but comfortable, with polished wooden floors and practical furniture. Mrs. Winters led her upstairs to a small bedroom with a window overlooking the pastures. "This will be your room," the housekeeper said. "Bathrooms down the hall, we've got running water." Cole insisted on that when he built the place. "I'll find you some clean clothes and draw you a bath. You look like you could use one, if you don't mind my saying." "Thank you," Delilah managed, emotion threatening to choke her again. "I don't know how to repay such kindness." Mrs. Winters patted her arm. "No need for that. The boss doesn't do things without reason. Whatever brought you here, you're welcome." She bustled out, leaving Delilah alone with her thoughts. Later, bathed and dressed in a simple cotton dress borrowed from Mrs. Winters, a bit large but clean and whole, Delilah descended to the kitchen where the smell of beef stew made her stomach growl audibly. Cole sat at the table, freshly washed himself, his dark hair still damp. He stood when she entered, the gesture automatic and gentlemanly. "Feel better?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." Delilah took the seat Mrs. Winters indicated, across from Cole. "I've told Mrs. Winters the basics," Cole said as the housekeeper placed bowls of stew before them. "Just so she understands the situation." Delilah nodded, grateful she wouldn't have to explain her circumstances again. "I appreciate that." "Now eat up, both of you," Mrs. Winters ordered, placing a basket of fresh bread on the table. "Miss Thompson looks half-starved, and you're not much better," Cole Thornton, "working from dawn till dusk without proper meals." The meal passed pleasantly, with Mrs. Winters doing most of the talking, filling Delilah in on the ranch and its operations. Cole ate silently, occasionally adding information when prompted, but mostly watching Delilah with those steady gray eyes that seemed to see more than she wanted to reveal. After dinner, Cole excused himself to check on a pregnant mare, leaving Delilah with Mrs. Winters to clean up. "He's a good man," the housekeeper said as they washed dishes. "Better than most, though he'd never admit it." "Has he owned this ranch long?" Delilah asked, curious about her enigmatic benefactor. "Going on 8 years now. Started with next to nothing after the war, just his horse and whatever he could carry. Worked for other ranches, saved every penny, then bought this land when nobody else wanted it. Too hilly, they said, not enough water. But Cole, he sees potential where others don't." Mrs. Winters handed Delilah a towel to dry a plate, "including in people." Delilah absorbed this information, adding it to the little she knew of the man who had unexpectedly changed her fate. "He mentioned his mother was taken when he was young." Mrs. Winters nodded solemnly. "Terrible business. He was just 10. His father never recovered from it, died a few years later. Cole was raised by his uncle after that, not a kind man from what I gather. Yet he turned out kind," Delilah observed. "Sometimes hardship shapes a person toward goodness rather than bitterness. Cole made that choice." Mrs. Winters hung up her apron. "Now you must be exhausted. Get some rest and we'll talk more tomorrow." That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in weeks, Delilah stared at the ceiling, processing the dramatic change in her circumstances. From prisoner to free woman in the span of a day, all because a stranger with sad eyes couldn't bear to see history repeat itself. Sleep came eventually, deeper and more peaceful than she had experienced since her parents' deaths. The next morning, Delilah woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the sounds of ranch life already in full swing. She dressed quickly in another borrowed outfit and made her way downstairs, eager to make herself useful. She found Cole in the kitchen, drinking coffee at the table while reviewing what looked like ledger books. "Good morning," she said hesitantly. He looked up, setting aside his papers. "Morning. Sleep well. Better than I have in months, thank you." He nodded, gesturing to the coffee pot on the stove. "Help yourself. Mrs. Winters has gone to collect eggs. She usually makes breakfast, but she said to tell you not to wait if you're hungry." Delilah poured herself coffee, then began examining the kitchen's contents. "I could make breakfast," she offered. "It's the least I can do." Cole watched as she confidently gathered flour, eggs, and milk. "You don't have to earn your keep here, Delilah." "I know," she replied, already mixing batter for biscuits. "But I want to contribute. I've never been one for idleness." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Fair enough." By the time Mrs. Winters returned, Delilah had fresh biscuits in the oven and was frying bacon in a cast-iron skillet. The older woman looked impressed. "Well, look at this." "I might just have to retire if you keep this up," she joked, setting her basket of eggs on the counter. Breakfast was a livelier affair than dinner had been, with 2 ranch hands, Diego and Tom, joining them. They treated Delilah with polite curiosity, clearly taking their cue from Cole's respectful demeanor. After breakfast, Cole prepared to head out to the north pasture, where a section of fence needed repair. To his surprise, Delilah asked if she could accompany him. "It's hard work," he warned. "And hot out there." "I'm stronger than I look," she insisted. "And after being confined for so long, I crave open spaces." He couldn't argue with that logic. "All right then. But say the word when you want to come back." They rode double again, Delilah now more comfortable with Cole's proximity. As they traveled across the ranch, he pointed out various features, the best grazing areas, the creek that provided water for the cattle, the stand of pine trees where he planned to cut timber for a new barn. At the broken fence section, Delilah proved true to her word, helping hold posts steady while Cole hammered them into place. They worked well together, establishing a rhythm without needing many words. During a water break, sitting in the shade of an oak tree, Cole finally asked the question that had been on his mind. "What will you do now? You're welcome here as long as you need, but I imagine you have plans of your own." Delilah traced patterns in the dirt with a stick, considering. "Honestly, I haven't thought beyond survival for months. Before my parents died, I was a teacher at a small school in Sacramento. I loved it." "You could teach again," Cole suggested. "Perhaps. Willits has a school, doesn't it?" Cole nodded. "Small one. I hear they're always short of teachers." "I'd need references, credentials. Mine were left behind when Blackwell took me." Her expression darkened at the memory. "We could write to Sacramento, get copies," Cole offered. "If that's what you want." Delilah looked at him, struck by his matter-of-fact support. "You do that for me." Why wouldn't I? Such a simple question, yet it revealed so much about his character. Most people wouldn't bother. "I'm not most people," he said with a slight shrug, "and everyone deserves a chance to build the life they want." They returned to work, but something had shifted between them. A tentative trust was forming, fragile but real. Days turned into weeks as Delilah found her place at the ranch. She helped Mrs. Winters with the household tasks, assisted Cole with the ranch accounts, discovering a talent for numbers that impressed him, and even learned to ride properly when Cole gifted her with a gentle mare named Daisy. "She's yours," he said simply, presenting the horse one morning after breakfast. Every Californian should know how to ride. Delilah's protests that she couldn't accept such a valuable gift fell on deaf ears. "Consider it an investment in your independence," Cole insisted. "Besides, she's getting fat and lazy in the pasture, needs the exercise." So began their morning rides together, exploring the furthest reaches of Cole's property. During these rides, the usually reserved rancher gradually opened up, sharing stories of his time in the war, his struggles to establish the ranch, his dreams for its future. In turn, Delilah spoke of her childhood in Sacramento, her passion for teaching, and eventually, the painful details of her parents' deaths and Blackwell's betrayal. "My father trusted him," she explained one morning as they rested their horses atop a ridge overlooking the valley. "They'd been business partners for years. After my parents died, he showed me papers claiming my father owed him thousands. I had no way to verify it, but it didn't matter, we had nothing left after the medical bills." "So he took you instead," Cole said, his jaw tight with anger. "He gave me a choice: come with him to work off the debt, or face prosecution for my father's alleged fraud. I was naive enough to believe I'd actually be working." Delilah's laugh held no humor. "By the time I realized what he really intended, we were halfway to Willits." "Did he?" Cole couldn't finish the question. "No," Delilah assured him quickly. "He wanted to preserve my value for the auction. Small mercies, I suppose." Cole's hand found hers, squeezing gently. It was the first time he had touched her beyond helping her mount or dismount. "I'm sorry that happened to you." The simple sincerity of his words broke something open inside her. Tears came suddenly, not the frightened tears of captivity but healing ones, releasing months of pent-up fear and grief. Cole said nothing more, just held her hand while she cried, offering silent strength. When the tears subsided, Delilah felt lighter somehow, as if a burden had been set down. She looked at Cole, seeing the compassion in his gray eyes and something else, something that made her heart beat faster. "Thank you," she whispered. "Not just for today, for everything." His smile was soft, a rare sight that transformed his usually stern features. "You're welcome." As summer gave way to fall, Delilah's presence at the ranch became less a temporary arrangement and more a permanent fixture. She had written to her former school in Sacramento, and they had sent copies of her teaching credentials. The school board in Willits had expressed interest in hiring her for the spring term, but somehow she kept delaying making a final commitment. Cole, for his part, found himself inventing reasons for her to stay. The accounts needed reorganizing. The ranch hands worked better with good meals. Mrs. Winters needed help preserving the garden harvest. The truth, which neither of them quite admitted, was that they had grown to need each other's company. Their morning rides became the highlight of Cole's day, while Delilah found herself watching the clock until evening, when they would sit on the porch after dinner, talking or simply existing in comfortable silence. One cool October evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the hills gold and crimson, Cole finally broached the subject they'd been avoiding. "Winter will be here soon," he observed, seemingly casual. "Mrs. Winters says it doesn't snow much here, but the rains can be heavy," Delilah replied, equally casual. "Makes the roads to town difficult, sometimes impassable for days." Delilah's hand stilled in her lap. "I see. The school board will want your decision soon, I imagine." "About the teaching position?" "Yes, they've asked for an answer by month's end." A silence fell between them, heavier than their usual comfortable quiet. "You want to go?" Cole finally asked, his voice low. Delilah turned to look at him directly. "Do you want me to stay?" The question hung in the air, laden with unspoken meaning. Cole met her gaze, the usual guardedness in his eyes giving way to vulnerability. "Yes," he said simply. "I want you to stay." Delilah's heart quickened. "As what, Cole? Your housekeeper, your accountant?" He shook his head, reaching for her hand. "As yourself, as Delilah, as—" He faltered, then gathered his courage. "As the woman I've come to care for more than I thought possible." The confession, plainly stated yet profound, brought tears to Delilah's eyes. "I care for you too," she whispered. "More than I can express." Cole's fingers tightened around hers. "I know it hasn't been long, and I know you came here under difficult circumstances. If you need time, or if you truly want to teach in town, I'll understand." "What if I could do both?" Delilah suggested, hope blooming in her chest. "Live here with you, but teach in town when weather permits." A smile spread across Cole's face, transforming him. "You could take Daisy. It's only a half-hour ride in good weather." "And in bad weather," he said, his voice deepening, "you'd be home. With me." The word home resonated through Delilah like a bell. Home. This place had become that to her, not just shelter but belonging. "I'd like that," she said softly. Cole reached up, hesitantly touching her cheek. "Delilah, I need you to know something. When I bought your freedom that day, I never expected never expected to feel this way." "I know," she assured him. "You're not Blackwell, you're nothing like him." "I want to do this properly," he continued. "Court you properly if you'll allow it." Delilah laughed, the sound bright in the gathering dusk. "Cole Thornton, we've spent nearly every day together for 3 months. I think we're well past the initial stages of courtship." He chuckled, the sound rumbling in his chest. "Fair point. Still, I want to do right by you." "You already have," she said softly. "More than anyone ever has." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a beginning rather than a culmination. When they parted, Cole's expression was one of wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe his good fortune. "I never thought I'd find this," he admitted. "After the war, I figured I'd live out my days alone on this ranch. And I never thought I'd find safety again, let alone—" She hesitated, then said it, "love." The word hung between them, fragile and powerful. Cole's smile deepened. "Is that what this is? Love?" "I think so," Delilah replied honestly. "I've never felt it before, but I can't imagine it being anything else." "Then I love you too, Delilah Thompson," Cole said, the declaration simple yet profound. "And I'd be honored if you'd consider making this ranch your permanent home. With me." The proposal, for that's what it was, brought fresh tears to Delilah's eyes. "Are you asking me to marry you, Cole Thornton?" "I suppose I am," he said, looking slightly surprised at himself. "Not very romantic, is it?" Delilah laughed through her tears. "On the contrary. I think proposing on your porch, overlooking the land you've built with your own hands, is perfectly romantic." Cole's expression grew serious. "You deserve better than what I can offer. This ranch is successful, but it's not a life of luxury." "Luxury is the last thing I want," Delilah assured him. "I want this honest work, open skies, and someone to share it with, someone who sees me for who I am." "Is that a yes, then?" Cole asked, hope evident in his voice. "Yes," Delilah said firmly. "Yes, I'll marry you, Cole Thornton." Their second kiss held promise and certainty, sealing a bond that had formed against all odds. The wedding took place in December, a small affair at the ranch with only close friends in attendance. Mrs. Winters cried throughout the ceremony, while the ranch hands looked uncomfortable in their Sunday best, but genuinely happy for their boss. The town of Willits accommodated Delilah's unusual situation, allowing her to teach 3 days a week rather than the usual 5, recognizing that having any teacher was better than none. On school days, she rode Daisy into town, returning to the ranch by late afternoon, where Cole invariably waited for her at the gate, no matter the weather. As winter gave way to spring, Delilah's position at the school became more established, her students flourishing under her care. At home, she and Cole settled into married life with surprising ease, their complementary personalities creating a harmony neither had expected to find. One evening in April, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, a ritual that had become precious to them, both Delilah took Cole's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I have news," she said softly, watching his face. Cole's expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension to absolute wonder in the span of seconds. "A baby," he whispered. Delilah nodded, her eyes shining. "Mrs. Winters suspected first. Apparently I've been glowing. Dr. Miller confirmed it yesterday when I was in town, due in November." Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "I never thought," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "A family of my own." "Well, you have one now," Delilah said, resting her head against his chest, "and it's growing." As twilight deepened around them, Cole held his wife close, marveling at the turns his life had taken. A year ago, he had been a solitary rancher with a successful business but an empty home. Now, because he had followed his conscience that fateful day in Willits, he had found more happiness than he'd ever believed possible. "Thank you," he murmured into Delilah's hair. "For what?" she asked, looking up at him. "For giving me a chance. For seeing something in me worth staying for." Delilah smiled, the expression lighting her entire face. "You gave me freedom, Cole, but more importantly, you gave me choice. That's a gift beyond measure." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Cole thought about the child growing within his wife, a child who would be born free, wanted, and deeply loved. a child who would never know the fear and helplessness that had marked both its parents' lives. "I love you, Delilah Thornton," he said, the name still new and wonderful on his tongue. "And I love you, Cole Thornton," she replied, her voice filled with the certainty that comes from finding one's true home, now and always. Their life together would not always be easy. The ranch would face droughts and harsh winters. The school would present challenges, and parenthood would bring its own trials. But together, they had built something unbreakable, a love founded on respect, choice, and the simple human dignity that Cole had recognized and honored on that dusty day in Willits, when he had bid $500 not to own a woman, but to set her free. And in that freedom, they had both found something neither had been looking for, but both desperately needed: a love that healed old wounds and promised new beginnings with each sunrise over the California hills they now called home.